Hi there, and welcome to another episode of The Practice Life. Today's good. Today is good. Today I'm calling the title of this episode is Smoking Was My Breathwork. I'll explain more about that to you. So, the practice life, what do I mean by that? I mean that we're always practicing something and we always have been, whether we were conscious about it or unconscious about it. And so, for those of us who are enjoying the journey of personal growth and expansion, you can look back on your life and see, wow, I was really practicing a lot of things unknowingly. And those practices created worn grooves. And now that I am leaning into a more conscious life, choosing my practices consciously, to kind of overwrite some of those old programs, is what it feels like. And it's even as simple as how do you make your coffee in the morning, or how do you get out of bed? How do you wake yourself? Is there a certain script that you use? Is it like ho hum, or is it intentional and conscious, where you're setting your foundation for your day? So it was a few years ago. There's a fantastic breathwork healer, Ellen Wong. Go follow her, Trip with Ellen. She's really quite amazing. She and I knew each other in another life, in another world of television and digital marketing. And we reconnected when we were both doing this kind of work. And she led me through some remarkable breathwork sessions. And it's very active, it's very intense. And afterwards, the calm and the peace and the centering that I would experience, I'd just be like, wow, here's this breath work. Breathing is free, and doing it really consciously and intentionally, wow, what a difference. What a impact it had on me. And I realized one day, oh, smoking was my breath work back in the day. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but that's exactly the feeling I was going for: to calm myself, to reboot my nervous system, to find a moment of peace away from the fray, to gather my wits, to put a little gap, a little blink in the middle of a lot of thinking and talking and doing, so I could just let solutions come to me. Smoking was my breath work. So let me tell you a little bit about my smoking journey. I was My mom smoked when I was in the womb. So, the first time as a kid, when you would steal some cigarettes and you'd all go behind a bush and, give it a whirl. And most people hated it. I was like, whoa, I like this. And that's no surprise. I mean, it's such an addictive drug. But was also addictive to me was that practice, that being in a centered moment of focused concentration. And I liked the ceremony of it. I liked the ritual of it. So, and that was a time when everybody was smoking. Everybody smoked. I mean, it isn't like your parents wanted you to, but it wasn't the end of the world. And, I think of my first jobs out of college. I mean, please, there were ashtrays in the conference rooms. You could have, if you were out like in a bullpen, you could just have an ashtray on your desk. It was just totally socially acceptable, and even in some places expected. I remember booking flights in my 20s, and I would book myself a non-smoking seat and then go back to the back of the plane to smoke. I didn't want to sit in all that everybody smoked, but that was just the craziest thing. Well, I was one of the last to give it up. I'm sorry to say. I mean, It had become such a practice for me, such a respite, such an escape. And the addiction was so strong that, I mean, a couple times I would find myself outside the office on the street in my winter coat in Chicago, smoking in the bitter cold, just shivering and smoking and feeling an ever growing sense of shame. I mean, an ever growing sense of shame. It was just like, this is not good. I mean, one by one, people were quitting. Then it was illegal, basically, to smoke inside. And then I'm trying to think if there were areas outside. I don't know if it had gotten that rigid yet, but the signs were clear. It was going to be a verboten thing, and I could definitely feel the shame of that because it had such a death grip on me. And my mom had smoked for so many years. Now she quit. She had been maybe she had quit for almost 18 years, and then was diagnosed with lung cancer and started that journey. She had a 5-year journey of chemo and what have it. And for a while there, I was still smoking. I was still smoking. And in what is, I think, divine magic, I already was filled with so much shame. I already was beating myself up so much. And every time I beat myself up, I'd have to have another cigarette. But in true divine magic, I was going in for a physical in Chicago with a new doctor. And I walked in her office, and my loins were girded. Loins were girded. She was going to tell me, you know, quit or die, or she was going to, give me a lecture or something. So I was ready for it. I was ready for it. But in true synchronicity, she sat down, we talked about smoking, and she said, well, you'll stop when you're ready. And when you're ready, I have something that might work for you. Let me know. And that was it. No judgment, no lecture, no, no. I didn't walk out of her office feeling bad. I walked out of her office feeling like, she's got something that's worked with other people. And I knew, I mean, I was ready. I was ready. I didn't want to be a smoker. I didn't want that practice anymore. I just didn't know how I was going to give it up. Well, I went back the next week. She put me on a program, a short, like 3-month course of the antidepressant Wellbutrin that's known for reducing cravings. And she put me on the patch, both those things. And I haven't smoked since. And that's probably like for me about 14 years ago. And the best thing ever. I'll never smoke again. And I know if I smoked one cigarette, it'd be over. So I'll never smoke again. And there's really nothing about it I miss because I've replaced it with new practices, new intentional centering practices that offer me that same respite and that same intentional space that smoking used to offer me. And so here's what I noodle on now. Again, we're living a practiced life, whether we're conscious about it or unconscious about it. And I started to think that, any of the destructive practices that I have been a part of my daily experience over my life, the ceremonies of it, the rituals of it, I was trying to get to this same place. This same place. I was trying to soothe myself. I was trying to feel better. I was trying to care for myself in a twisted way, but the intention was still there. And so as I've flipped my practices into conscious practices and still doing it, I get to see that, oh, I can accomplish that very same thing, the soothing, the feeling better, the centering, the being in the now present moment in a different way. And wow, is my life experience so much better? Do I feel better? Yes. Am I happier? Yes. Do I feel like I've stepped into more agency? Yes. Am I the queen of my lands? Do I have sovereignty now? Yes. And that's what happens when we begin to practice consciously, is that we're able to replace those old patterns with something new and get to experience the benefits of that. So that's why I say smoking was my breath work, but now breath work is my breath work, and meditation is my meditation. And all the practices, my morning ceremony, my evening ceremony, my midday hands on my heart, all those things are things that bring intentionality and consciousness to my daily experience. And what has that resulted in? Never been happier, never felt more ease, never felt more myself, never felt more of the possibilities of what my life can be. It's good medicine, my friends. It's good medicine. So if you'd like to share more of the practiced life with me, come hang out at the free front porch of my network. I have a free download for you called Morning Magic. That would be a great morning practice to get you started. And you can go there at sherrysalata.com/free network. I'll see you next time.